Father, we come before you this morning. Great love in our hearts for you. We are so grateful that you have chosen to reveal yourself to us, to enlighten the eyes of our understanding, to make it possible for us to even conceive that you are who you are. But then, Lord, you placed your Spirit within us so that we can be one, united with each other. And all that you have is ours. God, we're here to say this morning as parents, all that we have is yours. And Lord, these parents who've made all this effort to get here, they go to a lot of trouble to get here, God, and get things organized. And you said you would bless the hungry, that those who hunger and thirst, that those who seek will find, those who knock, it will be open to them. And so I ask that for today, Lord, that everyone here and those who are still yet to come in the door, everyone, Lord, will go away richer, fuller, wiser, more competent in excellence in parenting, and more joyfully in love, just so crazy in love with you for how good you are to them. And I thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so we can start out for a minute here if there's what's been going on. I've talked to most of you guys on the phone a little bit, but just kind of share with one another maybe some things that you've been doing, you've been applying, anything that you just have a praise, or you go, ooh, there was a shift, I'm going in the right direction there. And just anything so we kind of get a little atmosphere of we're going somewhere in here.
I feel like some of the pre-training stuff with our now 20-month-old, and like being sure to like do that outside of the time when I've noticed that, hey, that is a behavior that I want to like extinguish or make sure doesn't escalate. And so like being aware and conscious of like the taking toys away from his brother, like just playing like the, can we touch this game? And then, oh no, you can't touch this. And so I've noticed that he goes this when he's like walking towards his brother's toy to like grab it. So I feel like that's him saying like, can I I'm going to touch this, but I'm still walking towards it, I want to touch it. Yeah. So I feel like he is starting doing some of that on his own without
Maverick often says, Maverick very rarely says no.
Sometimes he says no.
Sometimes.
He says yes.
Yeah. It just depends on the situation.
That's great. So keep working it. Keep working it. Just goes up from here as far as how well that works. Yeah, good. Anybody else? Anything?
I think for us is pretty similar. A lot of focus on pre-training, or at least kind of not letting him be so unguided, I guess, such that right now it just seems like our older one is, saying, may I touch this, or may I come in please, or may I do this and that, and it just seems like he's a lot more mindful of him in relation to us and what we will say or do if he does something without kind of checking in. So yeah, we definitely see a lot more mindfulness on his part.
Good.
I think we try to, I think you had said to us, he's trained us to respond to him sometimes.
Before.
Yeah, where he'll demand, I need this, I want that. And before we're like, you didn't, ask us a question. Remember we said that if you want something, will you help me please? May I have this please? And so then it's just always that automatic response when he's just like, I need this, I need that. So now we just ignore him. We're like, oh, that's nice. You need that, you want that. And then he'll correct himself after, so it's I'm just going about doing my own thing and okay, great, you want that, but doesn't matter to me. You didn't ask me very nicely.
Yeah. And so you don't have to use those words. You're not trapped in this thing where he's trained you to always be his controller, right? The ultimate thing you're looking for are the character traits. We're going to talk about that today and hopefully, be really helpful. So you're looking to establish the habits of godliness in your children, the habits of righteous behavior. So it doesn't help them establish a habit if you've learned the habit of being their remember, their reminder, their motivation, right? You want that all, you're trying to put that and relate to them in such a way that they're exercising self-control. They're exercising sensitivity to the people around them. They're exercising politeness and honor and, you know, the kind of character traits you want. So anytime you find yourself always being the one who is the say please at the table, you know, remember to say hi, remember to do all these things, they're not learning anything except how to train you to say that, to do that, to always be. And then it starts out in an innocent way, but remember, all of life, I won't say that, the vast majority of the way we live our life is on the basis of habits. And I'll say it over and over and over again. We live by habits. You do something, your child does something. Remember, it lays down a track in your brain. We're talking about habit formation. So if your child does something, you say something, he is more likely to say that a second time, and you are more likely to respond the same way the second time. You do it 3 times, it goes up exponentially. You're like 4 times as likely to do it, 8 times as likely, 16 times as likely, right? And then pretty soon nobody even questions it. It's just what we do until somebody comes in and goes, why are you doing that? That is not working well. That's not accomplishing what we want. So, hi you guys. Hey, come on in. So that, or anytime that you can get to the point where you are switching that out and realizing what you guys are realizing, do the pre-training, realize where you want them to have, what is the character trait you're trying to get them to do, so you don't counter that with something that takes away their ability to grow in that, to embrace that, right? So anything else? We're just kind of sharing some things that have worked for us during the month. So anything else, you guys? Anything going here you can share with everybody?
I think we've both gotten better with staying calm and being less angry.
It's huge, absolutely
And
huge.
I have noticed it. Yeah, I mean, they still give us a hard time and push our buttons, but we've responded better. Not to say I haven't yelled
Yeah.
since last time, but
Yeah,
I think I've definitely been less angry. You know, you
Yeah.
just have to like make that choice. Okay, I'm not gonna get angry. I mean, it's really like a moment by moment thing. Like, God help me. Like, I'm angry right now, but I'm not
mm-hmm.
going to sin. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So it's gotten better. Like by the grace of God.
Good.
Yeah, like last night is a prime example. Like, so the kids are in the same room and they have a bunk bed. And Jason always does this manipulation thing where it's like, Mommy, one more hug and kiss, one more hug. Even after she says, okay, I'm going to give you one more hug and kiss, blah, 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 whatever, before she leaves the room. But it's always that one more. And he'll throw a tantrum if he doesn't get it.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, meanwhile, Aiden's up on the top bunk trying to sleep, or wanting to sleep. And so part of the thing, we give him a warning. Hey, Jason, if you're going to be loud like this and you're not going to let Aiden sleep, then you're going to go to the playroom. And he knows that routine already, as far as like when they're being rowdy, he's going to go into another room. We separate them. Now here's where the shift is. So of course he goes and he's like, oh, mommy, I want mommy, and he's always mommy, and I'm like a piece of wood, you know, and like, no, I want mommy, and so and by that time Mercy's kind of like, I had just gotten home from work and
Done.
she's done. So, you know, how do I take care of this situation, let Aiden sleep, separate him, but he's only screaming for mommy and he doesn't really want anything to do with me. And normally I would let him in the room, quiet, let him, you know, settle down in there. and usually that's where I'm like angry,
Mhm.
right? Because he doesn't want anything to do with it. No matter what I say, it's like he just wants mommy to remedy his thing,
Mhm.
which is his control, his power, right? So I said, Chasen, you have to go in this room. He's like, no, Mom. I'm like, no, Chasen, you have to go in this room. You got to go in this room until you calm down. And then so he's like, no. And then he slowly starts to walk in on his own. And I don't care if he lies down or whatever. He's just got to be in this room. I shut the door, and I come out, and he's still screaming. And I let it go to see what Mercy's up to, and she's in the kitchen. We're cleaning up, and he's still going at it. And then I decided, and this is all last night, so it's all fresh. I go inside the room, and he's like, and I said, Chasen, here's your choices, buddy. Do you want Daddy to pray for you, or do you want Daddy just to leave? Do you want Daddy to pray for you, or do you want me just to leave? He's like, just do it.
Just
I'm
do
like,
it.
What do what, buddy? Do you want me to pray or leave? He's like, just pray. I'm like, okay, buddy, come up here. And I put him on my lap, and this is like more of a moment of grace, and as well as me exercising grace and just not anger, right?
Yeah, you chose something else.
And
You
so,
filled it with
put him
something
on my
else.
lap, and we don't get the cuddles often because he always wants mommy. And then we just pray, Jesus, your power is stronger than anything out there, and your angels fly like arrows, like that. And I do all that, and then he's like, he's super, super quiet, and he calms down, and then so it worked out. I mean, Mercy came in later, but it was just kind of. I'm sure you came in and it was like, well, where did the noise go?
Yeah.
It was kind of quiet, and so it was kind of and even when she came in, and she sat down. He didn't rush to her like he normally would.
Uh-huh.
He would have been like, "Oh, mommy," and it's like, "Oh, okay, well."
Yeah.
But so it was kind of like a paradigm shift, if you will.
Right.
And then he went to bed, and it was fine.
Okay. So let's stay with this for a minute. So let's just kind of put that, because that's not an unusual scenario. I mean, that's a pretty typical thing that happens in people's families. So let's put that in the middle of the room, and let's think a little bit more about how you got that far. How can we now really work this thing? How can we get it so that it's no longer an issue? My background is as a speech and language pathologist, and there's a technique in working with clients who stutter, and when a person stutters, it's just something that happens that they block and they can't get it out, right? So one of the things that we can do is to help them, number one, recognize what happens during their block. So, okay, what happens when you can't get that word out? My throat closes, my tongue is locked to the roof of my mouth, I curl my toes, my one fist, I start to pump it thinking maybe that'll break the block, right? So now they've got the analysis of what's going on during that block or those repetitions, right? And then you're talking about just having them know that much. Just what is it that happens? Then the next step is to say, okay, after you have blocked, then look back and go, was there anything different about that? What happened? You're looking and you're moving them a little bit farther forward, and you're saying, okay, when you're in the middle of the block, think about what's going on. Just get your mind out of the panic mode and begin to think what's going on in my body. And then the next to the last step is, okay, when you're in that block, begin to pull out. Figure out something. I can relax this hand. I can take my tongue and consciously loosen it a little bit, like that. I mean, what are the parts here that I can back off in the middle of the block? And then the very last thing is, how do I feel that coming, feel that rising, and make the change before it actually locks in, right? So I just give that as a stepping stone when you're changing behavior, when you're figuring out how to choose something else besides anger. You're going to go and figure out, okay, what are my triggers? we talked all about that, but you're going to also figure out, okay, afterwards, what did I do? What triggered me? I'm in the middle. I'm thinking, yikes, I'm in the middle of this, and this is what I'm feeling. I'm thinking, don't like it, but can't quite pull out of it. Then I'm thinking ahead. I'm pre-training myself, right? I'm doing that imagery of exact same situation, walking it through, feeling myself let go and not choose the anger, but not leaving myself in a void. I'm going, what else can I choose that feels good to me? Pondering, perplexity, compassion, all that list of things that we gave as other options beside the anger. And then you're in the middle of the anger at another time, and you realize how to switch gears in the middle, and you go and you're in it, and you're out of it in the midst of it. And then you can anticipate and go, hey, I know how to before I even get there, right? And choose what's right. So let's do that with this kind of a situation. But you had a comment.
No, yeah, I just wanted to add to what you're saying, because when I was listening to you, I heard that because I know you used the word angry. You got angry when he wanted a mom, but another word could be like you were sad. You were kind of sad that he didn't so he didn't prefer you. But then in spite of that,
Sad is better than anger.
Yeah, you push
Such a way
through
to
that,
choose.
and you still exercise your parental authority. You're like, okay, I'm gonna still be in control of the situation, and I'm gonna talk really kindly to him and calmly and give him these two choices, and then it kind of helped push
Yeah.
through that.
And recognizing that anger is a choice. Anger is a choice. It's a something we choose or we choose not to choose, right? It's not just something that happens to us. If we see it as the boogeyman, we'll always be the victim. We'll always act like a victim. How can I control that? Hey, hi, good to see you. Yeah, so there's lots going on there. So now we're in the middle of it, and you figured out how to sort of pull out, right? So now what would be the next step, according to our little scenario here? You're in the middle and pull out. The next thing is, the next higher stage is,
To take one of the, relax the tongue, or identify something to pull back.
yeah, so in the middle, that's what you did. You were, you could have gotten angry, right? So you're in the middle and you're going, I'm not choosing anger, I'm choosing kindness, I'm choosing honor, I'm choosing communication, and gentleness, I'm choosing to give options, right, that are firm and have borders. All of that is great. Now, with the behavior too, Jason is pulling out, right? So now with him, let's put our eyes on him. How do we get him not to get into the block? How do we get him to not stutter, to not
Throw the tantrum.
stumble, to throw the temper tantrum? So now we can back it up one more step and go, whew, almost home free. What tools do you have in your basket that you can talk through with this scenario? What could work?
Pre-training.
How would you do it?
Well,
Suggesting, we're just brainstorming.
Well, I guess first you would recognize that when you walk into the room that, okay, that this is what I think it's the problem is he wants that extra hug and kiss, right? So.
Or it could be anything. He just doesn't want to go to bed at that moment, so he'll just think of anything. I'm scared, or I want I want this. Or that. It could be anything.
It's a habit of trying to stretch out your time, manipulating
It feels
in
like
some way.
manipulation, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's a trigger of he knows that sleep is coming, because we deal with the same thing. He knows that there's a routine to bedtime, and when you get to the end of that routine, something's gonna happen where we go, and so you have to kind of replicate that somehow and practice. I don't know, get the somehow get to that trigger point, and then be able to practice with him.
Maybe
Yes.
enact, in a fun way.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, I cannot emphasize enough what a great tool you have in the pre-training. Now, I don't know if I mentioned it with this class or not, but this pre-training, training in the middle, and then the redo is, I'm going to talk you through it again, and I'll do it multiple times to lock it in. But it is what God does with us. It's very biblical. You look in the book of Joshua, right? You're talking about Joshua. Okay, so God says to him, look, Joshua, I don't want you to be afraid. have good courage. You're going to have good courage. We're going to talk this through. We're going to practice this together. When you're going to go in the land, you're not going to be afraid, right? And then, so he's got all the pre-training ahead of time. He's kind of rehearsed it with God. Woo, big giants are going to be there. Okay, can you see them in your head? And you're not going to be afraid. You're going to be courageous. And you're going to meditate on the Word of God. And it's going to give you good success, right? So God pre-trains him. Then he gets him in the situation, and he's right there with him. I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. I'm going to be with you just like I was with Moses, right? So right there, God's right in the middle of the circumstances, making sure that in the midst of training, he's putting borders on that are not overwhelming Joshua, that are, helping him learn what he's supposed to do. But then, like, with the Israelites, God just says to them, he puts them out, and he pre-trains them, he puts them out, they're in the circumstance, and they fail. And God says, okay, or you just have to go around this mountain again. Right? So we're going to do the redo. And one of these times, I hope to God, you're not going to just keep going around the same mountain thinking that you're going somewhere, but you're actually going to launch out and get it done, right? But so I look at that and I go, I see that pattern through Scripture of how God works with us. So it's really a very, very powerful approach to how we become conformed to righteousness, right? So here with this situation, what can we do? We know, it's coming. He knows it's coming. Everybody knows it's coming. And it's not good. A misbehaving child is an unhappy child. A child who's being manipulative is not pleased with themselves. They're outside their identity. They're never going to be happy when they're outside their identity. So our job, how to get them back inside their identity so that they can make right choices. And the pre-train is really a good way to do it. And you do it the way God does. It's like you're going to talk a little bit, but you're going to act it out. You're going to imagine it. You're going to play, but you're going to do it again in that winsome sort of way. So being able to just say, Jason, it seems like most every night when we go to bed, there's this part here, right? Everything goes well. And then there's this part where it's time finally for you to go to sleep. And then you'll say something, right? But this is not good. It's not good for you. It's not good for mommy. It's not good for Abe and daddy, anybody. So, what can we do? And then just leave it there, right? And then come back a little bit later or sometime, when he's open for it and everything. You go, I have an idea, right? Come, hop into your bed. Like, okay, so I'm reading your story. You're just going to act it out. The bedtime thing, got your jammies on, you're hopping in your bed, read you the story, 14 kisses goodnight. Just make it really silly with him, right? Scratch your little belly like a puppy. Yeah, that's a good guy, go to sleep, right? And then now's your time to say, I need 12 more kisses, I need my mom, And you go, okay, so I'll act it out, and then you act out your part. And they love it doing that. But sometimes they'll go, I can't yell at you like that, Mom. I mean, it's like when you actually put them on the spot to act out their role, they freeze, they go, nah. And that's okay, that's good. You're going, ooh, little self-control and suppression there. He's not super enjoying his act, right? But one way or the other, you've got the scenario there. And you go, so what's the option? What are we going to do? How are we going to do this? So you act it through and you go, and you may even talk with him. So what's the thing? So I'll give you one kiss, and then I'm going to say, time to go night-night, and you're going to say, okay, Mommy, and you better add in there, I love you, right?
Good training.
Yeah. See, and you make it kind of dramatic thing. And so you go, let's try it. And you do the whole thing sort of silly, and then you say, here goes. Night, night. And you say, right? And he practices it. Mm-hmm. Now, if he may be able to just do it on that. So the next you're going to prime him, you're going to go, it's bedtime. And remember how we tried it. Remember what's going to happen. I'm going to say, and you're going to say, yes. Okay. You try it, and he balks. And, if he's a strong-willed child, then he's just going to go, forget the game. I want my mommy. I want 12 kisses. Kind of thing.
I have an idea. I can even let him him choose the number of kisses. Like, Jason, how many kisses do you think you'll require? That's really not the issue. Like, he'll probably say, like 10. Like so.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, we'll give you 10 kisses, and then so he's choosing, like, because like the number of kisses is not the issue. I don't mind giving him 10 kisses.
Yeah.
Like, and then but the issue is like, okay, then go to sleep. And when I say good night, I love you, and I walk out the door, then you go to sleep. That's.
Yeah. But
so
you
he's
have
not
to.
calling me back. All the
Yeah.
time.
You can talk that scenario through, but talking it through is not enough because you have all of this brain tracking. Habits
No, I'm
are
saying,
literally laid
like,
down in the brain.
We work it. We act it out.
Yes, you're
But
gonna,
I'm just asking him like
Yeah.
how many, and then we'll act it out.
and then you'll act it out. That's it.
Yeah.
Put that little element into it. He might say 100, then you're in. Okay. So I would say,
We'll negotiate.
okay, from 1 to 10, how many kisses
From
would
1
you
to 10.
Then you
like?
just say, I'm getting tired. It's Daddy's turn. I'm like, finally. All right. You're like, no, okay. All right, just 10, 5. How about 1?
So you're going to do the pre-train. It has to be sort of clean, slick, do it. And then before, this is the training in the actual experience. As you're getting ready, he's getting in his jammies and all, you're going, okay, remember what we were doing for tonight? And what am I going to say? And then what are you going to say? Awesome, just exactly right. And then you just get this, you get down to that part and you go, and you just do your little wink, you do your little say your thing, and then you kind of go, and you go, exactly right. I love you.
So what was the part you said? If he balks it and then
All right, if he balks and he throws the temper tantrum thing,
at
then
the moment of that
yes.
time.
Okay, here is the principle. Thank you for bringing that up. Here's the principle. You don't want to leave a negative behavior solidifying in the brain for habit. That's why the redo. And sometimes there's multiple redos, but if at all possible, you've got to not get angry. You've got to not get stressed. It just provokes everything wrong. It exacerbates the problem. You've blown it if you get there. So you got to deal with your stuff and really work it. All right, but now if you leave the one more time where he gets to scream and then somehow cry himself to sleep or have to go in the other room or whatever, all you've done is picture a road as the way your brain functions. A road, and you run a wagon over it in sort of wet dirt, right? And every time you run that wagon wheel over it, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper, right? So what you're trying to do is not go one more deeper. You're trying to jump that wheel out and get it on high ground and say, we're out of this rut, we're forming new patterns. So the redo is laying down a rail inside the brain that now you've got twice the possibility it's going to happen tomorrow night the right way. And when it happens right tomorrow night the next way, you've got 4 times the possibility the next night for both of you. And then 8 and 16. So you are habitually getting the right behavior down. It never happens if you allow the bad thing to stay there.
So are you saying we should do the redo right away?
Yes, you got to
Like
redo
that,
it.
same night, like-
That would be my recommendation. Now, if he's really, really ingrained in negative behavior, you may have to feel your way jump out of the rut, and then you're going to be back in it. You might have to wiggle it a little bit. But the ideal would be, for example, one of you, I think, or maybe it was the other group, somebody's talking about children who at the park, going to the park, right? Okay. So throwing a fuss, I may get this story wrong, but I'll just make it up. So throwing a fuss when it's time to leave the park, right? So the idea of doing the role play, setting it all up, the child does the role play, great, winsome, having a good time, but then time to leave the park, and wham goes the wingding for the child, right? So then what I recommended is you're going to take that little child, you're going to, as long as they're at the age where you can still pick them up, Cindy, you're going to pick them up, you're just going to quietly, without any tension in your body, so they know they're not getting you angry, anything. You're just going to go back and you're going to go, hey, we're going to try this again, because this is not okay. And when they calm down, right, there's a whole way to get them to calm down. But when they calm down, you're going to go, okay, here we go. So let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to walk back on the path. We're going to go back to the little sandbox where you were. And I'm going to say the same thing. I'm going to say, honey, time to leave the park. And you're going to say, what? Okay, mommy. Let's practice it. Honey, it's time to leave the park.
Okay, mommy.
There you go. And you go, high five. Exactly right. Right? And then you just walk that little child back. And then you go, la da 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 da. Okay, play in the sand. La da 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 da. Honey, time to go. And they go, okay, mommy. And then you go. Might have to do that 3 or 4 times. I've had to do that with my grandchildren once, here, where literally it was the 3rd time going through and going, oh my, no, we can't end this way. We can't go this way.
So if it's bedtime, what if they just want to do the redo over and over? Like just, that's a way to manipulate. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I doubt it. I doubt if it will trigger into that, but you're right, that may happen. I think it really depends on how you play your cards. And by that I mean the level of security and confidence that you're bringing to what you're doing switches them out of manipulation into your game, so to speak. Your issue of what you're doing. They're not in their manipulation now. They're not in charge of that. They're not making it up on the fly, but you're the one who's saying this is what's going to happen. And again, a child really wants positive reinforcement. They want to have success deep down. Even when they feel like they act like they are resisting you as much as they possibly can, for an absolute fact that everything inside of them is wanting to do well because they're created in the image of God. They're made for righteousness. That's where they're going to hit their sweet spot. That little square is going to hit the square hole, and they're going to feel good about it, right? And they'll break that pattern.
For the repetitive redo, which I'm thinking as well, would it be best if they get it out, I guess, during those pre-training runs? Like, that's where you can really afford to do a lot of redos, and at least you're laying down the new track. And then when it comes to nighttime, that's what I'm fearing too, that it's just extending. But instead of, I guess if you do enough pre-training, there's enough track laid down that hopefully minimizes the redo at the end.
Yeah, and with the pre-training kind of thing, and when you really got a deep rut of bad habitual patterns, right? It's probably not going to change. You can anticipate resistance, that it won't be a quick fix to do that. So in some things with pre-training, it's like you're going to do that over a period of days, a period of weeks. Again, here are the principles. You do not want your child to come to resent pre-training. You will totally lose your tool if you lose your winsomeness and the joy of the process. Pre-training is helping your child handle their problem. If you are working at it as if this is my problem, I'm trying to get you to stop irritating me, you've lost it. You're coming at it from a completely backwards, and they sense that. So they'll resist you. That provokes the flesh. But if they understand in the wording that you're using of going, honey, you've got a problem. How can I help you? So those words, how can I help you, are wonderful to use with children. You have a problem letting mommy leave, when it's time for me to go. And so how can I help you? I've got some, and don't expect an answer from the child. Don't. You're asking that rhetorically, just to get out in the air. Do not expect your child to have those answers. Don't put that on them. You're gonna say to them, why did you do that? When they do something bad, and they're gonna go, I don't know. It's gonna make you madder because you're going, I bet you know why you did it. I know why you did it, right? So you trap yourself into an anger spiral. And the fact is that child does not know. They don't know. The bottom line is you're failing them as a parent in not being able to pull together the wisdom and the structure that's going to help them get out of that behavior, because the experience of doing it right will lead them to be able to understand the principle of what is right and why. Experience precedes principle. So it's your job to get the child the experience, so when you go around to explain the principle, they've got something to associate it with. Oh, I've seen blue. Talking about blue, I know blue, right? All right. So anyway, those would be some hints, and we can refine that a little bit more, but I wanted to just bring it out because I'm sure this is all, when we talk about habit formation,
Yeah.
it's so key. Go
That's
ahead.
probably the same for, I think, for other habits too, not just putting a kid to sleep, but I think one of the things that we tend to do, for example, is we clean up after Amelia. So, but she likes to bring all our toys, put it in the living room, and alright, I'm done playing. I'm gonna go somewhere else, right? And then it's all over. And then this morning, for example, I noticed Magda had sand all over the carpet. And this, the carpet, it's not like this, it's like the ones with poofy.
Thick.
Hat pile.
Yeah, it's and it's gonna be such a mess cleaning it up. But,
It hides the stuff better.
yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
that's
It's
it.
blue and it's white. It's
Oh,
white.
okay.
I get tired at the end of the day, so sometimes it's just we don't clean up, and then it's like 2 weeks. So that's probably mom needs to
Yeah.
take 15 minutes end of each day. That's what you guys do. Clean up.
It was.
Okay, so
Or
we're
we tell them it's clean. We sing the cleanup song, and we're like, oh, you know, if you're not touching it, you're not playing with it. We got to clean up before we do something else.
Put it away.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we often like, you know, oh, you want to play with this other thing? Okay, before you get that out, we got to clean up this other stuff.
Mm.
Like I did that at the park yesterday. His sand toys, and he wanted to go off and run on the equipment. I'm like, we got to clean up your toys first, buddy,
Right.
before we can do anything else.
there you go. It's just that you figure out what it is you're working on, the character trait, orderly soul.
Mm-hmm.
Order in the heart is a huge thing for someone to live a successful life. So you're figuring out what you're working on. I'm going to give you one of those sheets I gave you. We'll talk about it later, but it will help you. And you're figuring out what am I working on and where can it be worked on, right? So if I'm working on that sense of orderliness, then I really, really, really have to be consistent. Inconsistent is almost worse than nothing at all, because you back yourself, you lose your ability to encourage and inspire and empower change when you're inconsistent. I think it's pretty well true with anything we're trying to do in our lives. The inconsistency is almost worse than if you didn't start it at all. Right? Once you jump in, be consistent, conquer, and then move on. But with children's behavior, you're going to conquer that. You know, you're going to see great growth in the orderliness and in the order in which he does things. And then he'll drop off. You know, he'll test, whatever. That's when you need to, and Charlotte Mason is great on teaching into this, that's when you absolutely can't be inconsistent, right? When you've had a habit that you go, oh, conquered it, and then you start to go, he's working so hard, he wants to run off and play just once. You can't, or you lose it.
That the problem is not so much her as me. I grew up very messy,
Mhm.
so it's kind of hard. I guess I just preach to myself. That it's like I'm fine with that because that's how I've
Yeah.
been like. So I'm like, oh, I'm not bothered by it.
Yeah.
And then,
So now, what was our principle? You cannot parent based on what you can tolerate. That is not okay with God. It's not okay with God. You're not your own. You're a woman under authority. And God says, doesn't matter to me if you can tolerate screaming in your children or tolerate, rudeness or tolerate whatever. Who cares from God's perspective? What God expects is that you're working on godly character. So it's not about you. It's not about what you can tolerate. It's, are you being a steward of what God has for you to bring into the lives of your children? You're hired for a job such a time as this. And you got a boss, and he's got his ways. And that's what you do. Right? And you cannot do that with any less fervency and responsibility than you would in a job that you are paid for by some human employer. Right? You can't just look and go, well, it doesn't matter to me if there's spelling errors in this document I wrote on behalf of you that I'm sending off to the president of another company. I mean, what's a few spelling errors? Where's your job? Right? I mean, it is God's standard, not yours. It's huge, huge principle.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say you're going through a pre-training, whatever it is, playroom,
Yeah.
sleeping, it doesn't matter. And the child starts to get like bored of it, like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. You know, we're starting to lose this thing.
Yeah.
Would it be wrong, or is the connection not the same if I said, all right, how about this? And like, you know, like Jason loves his little Pikachu Pokemon thing. And then we took one of his other stuffed animals and we said, okay, why don't we real play it with this? And then you just act it out, now you be the Pokemon or whatever it is.
Using dolls, all of that, perfectly fine.
Okay.
Not perfectly fine for you to wear out this tool. This tool is short, sweet, pointed. A child should never get bored, should never get resentful. If boredom and resentment even enter into it, you have lost your tool,
Right.
and it will be almost impossible for you to ever use it again. You can't screw up on this one. So literally, you've got to stay winsome, short, sweet, think it through ahead of time, how you're going to do it. And if you're sensing any resistance, you're doing it wrong. So get out
Pull back.
until you figure out
So
what
just
you,
stop
till you'll
and
do it
then
right.
Try later.
Well-
with a different method.
I wouldn't use a different method, but I would think in terms of how am I not
Being effective.
in relating to my child around the pre-train. It should be honestly something your kid anticipates coming and looks forward to, because it's just fun. There's no heaviness. That's why I say your attitude means everything.
Right.
If you're in there to say, I'm going to be intense, and okay, we're going to pre-train. When grandma comes, you are going to say, you're going to kiss that old lady whether she smells bad or not. That's it. I don't know what, I'm just being
I
silly.
think the kids,
Okay.
if we happen to be home, I think the kids would get a kick out of, like, I want to be Jason, and then mom, and then
I've done that. You can do that. There's so many things you can do. You can be your kids. It needs to be when you're doing the pre-train, even the train, even the redo. It needs to be in such a way that your child is saying, it's good to be me here with you. And if you've lost that, you're just smacking at the wind, Don Quixote kind of thing, and you've lost your tool. You've lost your tool.
I have another question. So you mentioned there is a good way to get them to calm down once they've flipped their lid. I know that it's best to avoid tantrums, but when they have just completely flipped their lid, what is the best way?
All right, so here's your principle. If you always want to find, don't just look for a behavioral intervention that you go, what can I do here? What can I do here? What's your principle? Lock it into your principle, because your principle will dictate for you what you do. And if you're not locking into a principle, you'll try shotgunning something, and most of it won't be effective. What's your principle? Children are born persons, right? That means when they're born persons, there are some things I absolutely cannot do with another person. I can't intimidate them. I can't overcome them with anger. I cannot manipulate. If you loved mommy, you'd do this. You can't put an undue emphasis on you're asking them not to be manipulative, and you're just planning out how to be manipulative. Big wrong, right? So children are born persons. And so your question is, when they are throwing a temper tantrum, and how you get them to do that. Okay, so temper tantrums, any behavior that is antisocial, then the natural thing with persons is a natural or a social result. So if you walked in here and you threw yourself on the floor and began to throw a temper tantrum, I would escort you out, right? And if you were too big to escort out, the rest of us would look at each other and go, let's go meet at the picnic table outside. And we would leave you here alone because it's antisocial behavior. So the natural thing is the removal of social interaction. That's very respectful of another human being. That's honoring, that's logical, that's just a natural kind of consequence. So when children are throwing temper tantrums, then, for example, the car, leaving the park, going back to the car, it's like, okay, they go back to the car, they're still going, well, I didn't want to leave the park, I didn't love the park. And you're looking and you're saying, this is not okay. This is not appropriate behavior. You need to calm down, and when you calm down, we'll go back and do this right, because I know deep down you want to do this right. And bright face, warm smile, right? And so at that point, you can put the child in the car. I wouldn't stand there I wouldn't sit in the car and let the child scream at me. That's the flesh loves it, right? But you can just say, yeah, you can just say, I'll wait outside, right? And then you're gonna have to wait, even though you've got phone calls to make and places to go. Your first priority is doing what your child needs you to have done, because this is your job. This is your job. So the child calms down. Moment your child is quiet enough where you can count 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd get to 4, right? 5 would be better, but if you can get to 4 and they've calmed it down, that's when you're just right there saying, that's a calm girl. That's a calm boy. Whatever. That's being calm. Okay, come on. We're gonna do this right. We'll do it right.
But what if
I'll
he's
help
getting
you.
so upset, he says he can't breathe and he's gonna throw up?
You're totally being manipulated. Even if he stops breathing, he will breathe again as soon as he passes out. I'm being
I
very.
used to actually make myself pass out when I was a kid
Yeah.
to get my way, and I'm totally fine now.
But he said, I have to throw, I can't. I'm like, okay, go to the bathroom, throw up if you need to.
Yeah, but there can't be any anger. Remember?
No, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just. Okay, but then after that, I would pre-train to that. Now, I have pre-trained, for example, my grandchildren to say there's an appropriate way to cry and there's an inappropriate way to cry. And we literally train to that, and we practice it, and we play it as a game. And they actually love it, So I talk to them, I go, okay, let's suppose you were at the doctor's and you had a Band-Aid on, and we had to take the Band-Aid off, and we went, yeah, and had to pull the Band-Aid off, and there's a ouch, like that. So how would you cry then? Oh, yeah, that's good. That's enough right there. That's really appropriate for a Band-Aid, right? Now, suppose we were out and something happened and your arm fell off, or your arm got chopped off. Now, how would you cry then, right? Well, you could cry a little bigger then, but here's the deal, honey. You can't cry too big because nobody can help you when you're crying really hard. So then we move it in and play doctor. It's like, okay, so I'll pretend my arm got ripped off and you're the doctor and you're trying to help me. And the little doctor can't help you and they're going, Mom, stop, I can't help you. And you go, yeah, that's right, Mom, you can't get helped when you're doing that. So let's see what I could do. I could go, that's okay. That's okay for when your arm's off and someone's trying to help you. And you just play this funny kind of. You got to get your sense of humor, right? And your kids love it. And but you're teaching them a life skill, right? So, if you remind me, we'll talk about just those quick fixes of life skills, like teaching children how to swallow pills before they ever have to swallow a capsule. You can do it real easily with. I'll give you the hint.
Candy.
With medical things, not with candy because they'll suck it. Not with sweet. I did this wrong one time. My grandkids loved honey. I said, okay, we'll make a honey capsule. But then they didn't want to swallow the honey capsule because they wanted to taste the honey capsule. I thought, well, I was done. Right? So then what we did was we filled the little capsules. You can just buy them online. And we have a little eyedropper, and they love to like squeeze. I said, okay, just 2 drops. 2. No, nothing. 2. Right? And the little thing, and you put the little lid on, right? And then you give each of them one, and you go, okay, let's see who can swallow it first, right? And then they're taking little sips of water. Stellar. And then probably about the 6th one, they're going, yeah! Oh my God! Right? Got it down, right? And then you go, honey. And then they get the little spoonful of honey, right? So they learn. I mean, you have kids. I have a daughter-in-law who never learned to swallow a capsule. She couldn't even take prenatal pills when she was pregnant, without going, gagging. And I thought, what is the deal? So just with little tiny children, you can think ahead. It says, the wise see the future and prepare for it. You're going to have to go in for doctor's appointments where things are going to hurt. You've role-played the whole thing. So you just go back to your kids and go, remember now, okay, if it was the Band-Aid, this, if it was the arm, that, if it was a big whack on the head, what was that, And they just start, if I got disappointed and someone took my toy, let's not cry at all. Let's just go, you took my toy. My toy back, thank you. But you do it, do you see how winsome? And they love it. They love it. If they cease loving it, you're doing it wrong. You need to cheer up, get a little winsome, and figure out how to love what you're doing.
So when Isaac starts I can see him on the verge of okay, I'm about to melt down. So it's you're whining, this is antisocial behavior. It's okay, let's go in your room, and when you're calm, knock on the door, and mommy will come, open the door, and you can come out at that time. Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking, is that more so because it's okay, is it, you find the corner, stand in the corner and cry all you want, and when you're calm, but then he's put me in the corner, versus his room, or which sort of this idea of time outs of where you can calm down, is it appropriate of okay, if you're in your room, I close the door, or and we're totally separated by that, but that sort of feels I'm almost shaming him or abandoning him, or the chair in his room.
Time outs, I think, are way overrated. Mm-hmm. They're almost totally ineffective. I mean, minimally effective at certain times in certain ways, but everybody uses them all the time, right? Yeah. And they're not. They're not effective. They can be a form of manipulation. Yeah. They can be all of this. If a child themselves wants to go into a room and calm themselves down and read books, But so what you want to do, you're going to fall into the pattern of doing it a little bit. But what you've got to think is this is not going to work long term. So what is it he's whining about that's causing the need for the timeout? And I pre-train to that, and I eliminate that behavior. Therefore, we don't need a timeout because we have a child who isn't whining for his food or whining for his toy. He's handling it well. I've given him the skill. You are training for successful living. Everything you train for successful living eliminates a need for a timeout, eliminates a need for how do I punish, but not punish because he's a person and God doesn't punish me, he just trains me and, helps structure my time. So, you just make your life so much easier the moment you think, okay, this is a struggle for him waiting for his lunch without whining.
Well,
I'm going to train for that. Right? Okay.
That happened. So he had his cart and he's been skipping his naps. So then he gets a little crazy with his little push wagon cart, whatever, and just goes careening all around the house. And we're just okay, you're not calm anymore. It's okay, can we slow down a little bit? And if you're slow, you can continue playing with it. But if you get a little crazy again, we might have to take it away. So then it's oh, craziness, we're taking you away. And then it's blah.
Okay.
And then we're okay, let's go in your room and calm down. And when you're calm, you knock on the door and I'll come.
Well, you push them in the room too.
Yeah.
Okay, so back up with the craziness. The language really matters. Language really matters. You want to use language that communicates to the child that they've got a problem and you're there to help them with their problem. It's not that you don't want to communicate to the child, you are making a problem for me, therefore I am going to come in here and tell you what consequences are going to be here if you continue to make a problem for me. See the difference? You're working for self-control, character development. So the language of saying, if you continue to go wild, I'll take this away. I'll have to take this away, or I will take this away, is very different from just coming in, figure out your language and say, this toy is for pushing slowly in the house. Outside, you can push it like crazy, but this toy is for going slow. You know how slow? Watch this. And then you go, here, I'll put your little hat on. I'm you. Right? It's about this slow. Right? Now, it's not this slow. No, it's this slow. That's what this toy is for in the house. Now, you've just put down the borders. You haven't become the person who is controlling or saying, and if you break my rule, which ticks me off, I'm gonna, or brings out my consequences, then I'm taking your toy away. All you have to stipulate is what the boundaries are. If he breaks the boundaries, you go, oh my goodness, this toy is for going slow. Well, we can try again tomorrow. So now you're not saying, I'm taking your toy away. You go, sorry for that problem you've got. Right? And you actually become, you're coming alongside. You're always the one who's looked to the child going, things are not going well with me. I don't get the toys I want. I don't get to eat what I want. I don't get to whatever. But they look to you to go, could you help me solve my problem here? It's not going well. And being a problem solver alongside your child depends on your language and your attitude and your wisdom. But do you see the difference in that scenario? And one is going to breed absolute, promote total self-control and a choice mechanism that goes, okay, if this toy is for going slow here, and I decide to go fast, then the toy I don't get to play with the toy because it's for slow in the house. And it isn't my mom or my dad saying, you do that and I'll take it away. Totally different dynamic happening between you and your child.
Well, how do you convince them it's their problem though? Because they love going crazy.
Their problem is because this toy is for going slow in the house. Now, it's just very firm. That's the stipulation. That's what this toy is for. It's for going slow in the house. And slow is a relative term, so you've actually given them an example. They know what slow is and what not slow is. So there's no confusion here. You don't have to give him 3 tries like, that was not slow. He knows what slow is. And so the very first time he doesn't go slow, then it's like, oh my, this toy is for going slow in the house. And you're just slipping it away and you're putting it up high and go, we can try tomorrow. We can try for slow tomorrow.
Question about that. So I know I'm just thinking of our little guy, and if we were to do that, are you putting it out of sight, or are you putting it somewhere? Because if it's like, I'm thinking I put it up, but within sight, it'll like create more of a tantrum scenario. Whereas if I put it up and away, like out of sight, out of mind, is there a preference?
Yeah, I would put it out of sight for a younger child. For an older child, no.
Okay.
You're going to have to judge. You have the wisdom, but there's a point at which he's going to have to be able to turn his mind. One of the beautiful things that Charlotte Mason talks about in one of her books is the will of a child. And we talk about having a strong-willed child, the one who's throwing the temper tantrum, the one who won't accommodate and be flexible. That's a strong-willed child. And she's so insightful, and she goes, no, that's a child with no will. That's a child with no will, who's absolutely, totally, at the mercy of their lust for whatever it is that they want. So it's a will-less child who is throwing a temper tantrum. A child with a strong will would be able to say, can't have that truck now that's up there, but I can willfully turn my mind to say, but I've got all these cars on the floor and I'll just do this. That's a child with a strong will, a healthy will, a strong will. Do you see the difference? So you don't want to eliminate the opportunities for the child to grow a strong will.
What would you say younger versus older? Like,
I don't think I would put it, I think it has to do with temperament. I think it has to do with habitual pattern. How ingrained is this child in manipulating you so that they actually can compromise, make you compromise and give them what they want. They're going to be more wild in their objections if their objections have actually paid off a lot. So how soon you start this kind of training, that's why my idea of doing parent training is 0 to 9 years of age, because it's so satisfying for me. I'm a preventative medicine person. I'm a preventative parenting person. I don't want to have to dig myself out of a hole. So that's why I love you guys with little children. I'm going, whoa, if you do this, there's no hole. There's no hole to dig yourself. There's no rut to have to somehow fight your way out of. There'll always be some, but it will be so minimal.
So, Jen, when you said you don't really enjoy, or is there cases where you use, say, timeouts or sparing the rod, that type of situation? We don't need to do that at all for Amelia, other than, we did do timeouts like once in a blue moon. But because at one point in time we did spank the tush, but that doesn't work for her.
You did what?
Spanking.
Spanking the tush a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
She doesn't
Okay.
work for her, so I was like, I forget it's spanking. But is there any time do you ever use those at all?
Spanking?
Yeah.
This is so. It's so the discretion of parents, right? And so I am not anti-spanking for children. I'm not cold, black and white. You never spank.
Right.
I spanking with a particular child that is responsive in a particular way can actually be one of the best ways to help a child get a hold of themselves and make a change and be re-embraced and move on quickly without having something drag out for hours through the house, right? So we had one son that now I would never spank on the spot if you're doing it right. It's not like you whack out and, take a child in the midst of something. But being able, again, no anger, look at the child and go, I would only spank for defiance. My husband and I, it had to be defiance. It wasn't that you just did something wrong. It's that mom or dad said, you must, thus and so. And they look you straight in the face and say no. So for me, I'm going, that's dangerous. I'm John the Baptist making the way for the Lord to walk into the heart of this child. If I cultivate in them an attitude, a disrespect for authority, then I'm putting a stumbling block and a hindrance in the way of the Lord walking into their heart, because they will turn around. I'm the God figure in their life. They're going to turn around and God's going to say this, and they're going to say no. I'm going, yikes, Baal's not doing my job very well. So when a child is absolutely defiant, for me, that was the only thing that we spanked for, was total defiance. And then I stayed very calm. My husband stayed very calm. And you just escort a child to a room and you say, it's not okay for you to say no to mommy. When I tell you something that must be done, you may not say no to me. Now I know I've heard other people who teach on parenting, and they say, you want to have a child be able to say no to adults. Go, yeah, but not me. I mean, they know the difference, saying no to a predator in a park. I'm not, they were saying, well, you're setting a child up to say yes to somebody awful. I go, no, I'm going to teach them not to say yes to someone awful. To me, I'm the God figure. If I give very few orders, but when I do, there is not possible for you to say no.
Okay, Jan, you have to clarify though, between that and like the toy in the room. Don't do that. Junior, don't do that. And then so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So in here, you want to start dropping out. If you're getting into your right perspective in parenting, you want to stop dropping out. Don't do that. Don't do that with the toy. Don't do that. You're changing your language to say, the train is not for throwing. Right? Now the child has a problem. If he wants to throw the toy, goodness, he's going to, the toy is not for throwing. So what's the natural thing? The toy gently gets taken away because this toy is not for throwing. If you're going to throw it, you don't have the toy. That's it. Right? Not a punishment. It's just this toy is not for throwing. So if you're saying a lot of, don't do this, stop that, your language is wrong and you're not thinking about the principle. What is the principle? You're working for self-control in the child. If you're forever saying, don't do this, stop that, that's enough of this, you are cutting the feet underneath character growth in the child. Those are not terms that serve you well. Will you ever have to say them? Will you ever forget and say them? Yes, both to those things. But it should be the most minimal kind of language going on with your child. It's just the factual information, right? We don't scream at the table. Hoppy down, dinner's done, we'll try tomorrow. That's it. Simple things like that. Instead of, stop all that screaming.
So, sorry, I guess, so if you could clarify that between a defiance.
Okay. Well, you can set yourself up for defiance with a child by using no and stop that and, don't do that. You just you make it happen, right? Because you're just baiting it. So change your language, figure out your principle, and talk accordingly. The defiance is if there really is something that that a child is told that they must do, and they look you straight in the face and they say no. So pick your must-dos very carefully. There shouldn't be an awful lot of them, but they're there, right? So when you hit one like that and a child now there's a difference between a child going, no, I don't want to, and a child who looks you in the face and goes, no! There's defiance. And the other one is, I'm on the border and I'm thinking, So I would work that a different way than a child who's just like in your face, I hate you, mommy, no, kind of thing. And that you've worked your way into a big hole, that there's many facets of working that way out. But the first thing is handling the language, and the other one is, for me, the spanking was okay for that. And then the child would be just told, it's not okay for you to say no to mommy when I give you a command. I tell you something you must do, you may not say no to mommy. And then the child is gone to the room, and you go to your room, and you can hop on your bed. So it's not playing with your toys. You're going to hop on your bed. Maybe you even escort them there, or you just watch that they go and they hop on the bed and you go, that's exactly right. Now you stay there, and I'll be back in a little bit, but I am going to spank you when I come back. Very calm, very low and slow. And the child waits, and you don't make them wait forever because it's anxiety provoking, but you also don't just run right back in, let a couple of minutes go by, or however long, depending on the child. And I would never spank a child with my hand, but, we used a back of a wooden spoon, and it was always, on the back of the leg or on the butt or, whatever. And it was enough to hurt. It was enough to hurt. But I would say to the child, you understand why you're being spanked, because it's not ever okay to say no to mommy when I give you a command, or to daddy. You understand? And you can tell whether they understand, and they might even nod their head a little bit, and you go, okay, I'm going to spank you. And you spank, and the child hopefully cries. Some children are very, very determined not to cry, but even with them, you're looking for a change of the inner heart. And so the moment that child starts to cry or shows a softening, go, I would love to give you a hug. Ask permission. I'd love to give you a hug. And then you just put your arms around that child. If they're little, they're going to rock, they're going to cry. And you're not really using any words, you're not saying, but the softness of the child. And then you're just going, okay, so we're going to go try this again, because I know you know what to do is right. And then you go back and you say, remember mommy said, we're going to do this, you need to do this. And what you're going to say to me is, okay, mommy, got it? Very gentle, those sweet looks. You got it? I know you got it, right? Go back to important. Go back, if you can all possible, go back to the exact same location, right? You're redoing, you're erasing off the brain board, right? And replacing it with a success. So exact same situation, exact same position in the room, everything. And you go, okay, here it goes. Right? Jason, you need to, Amelia, Amanda, you need to do this. Mommy says, you must do this. And you're saying, okay, Mommy, that's my girl, that's my boy, exactly right. Hey, you want to go have some, want to go take a little walk, you want to go feed the fish, you want an instant out, instant distraction, instant move on, all done, right?
So if we don't believe in spanking, is there like a better alternative
Mm-hmm.
that you would suggest?
Yeah, we would have to go on that. We'd have to go situation by situation, identify your principle, and figure out what your tools are. Because there are other tools, that you could use if you definitely don't believe in that. So as I said, we had one child who would just fall into your arms, and he would know he had a problem. He would be totally repentant. We had another child that spanking honestly just hardened his heart, and we knew right away. We never used spanking with that child. And it wasn't that he was hardening his heart so he didn't get a spanking. He never made that connection. But I knew, I'm going, but this is not a tool that is beneficial to this child. It follows my rule, but we're not under the law. We're under grace. And grace is very creative, right? So if it serves a child well to shape their inner being, use it. If it doesn't, not. So. All right, I'm going to stop it there for a minute. Unless you, one comment. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, there's so much intention and heart behind everything, and not the flesh response, that it's a wonder to me how we're not all messed up. I just don't know how greater society can get to that part all the time where we're even struggling with it. So.
Yeah.
And this is just education for us, so it's like
Yes.
so
So we're realizing as parents, God talks about you as his children. I think there's a reason why he uses that word. Because God is fathering you in your inner being in the exact same way that he says, go and do likewise. Right? So you are fathering your children in the way that God fathers you. So that's why I'm saying for Christians, it's all about supernatural interchange, transformation, change inside the heart. Your heart, put the mask on yourself first in the airplane if things get messy, and then put it on your kid. You can only bring to parenting who you are. My motto has always been, I don't want to be tomorrow who I am today. I don't want to be the next day who I will be tomorrow. I am going from glory to glory to glory, because the path of the righteous is like the dawn, goes from glory to glory to glory until the fullness of the day. Right? So you are a better parent today than you were yesterday. You are going to be a better parent tomorrow than you are today. And your children are on the same path, right, of growth. And it's inner transformation. So we're going to take a little bit of a break here just to stretch, and then I just want to go over a little bit of content with you, and then that will tie in with this. And then I want us, honestly, to get to a part where we're going to be using these handouts that I gave to you, okay? So let's just take just enough to stretch your little bones and body, and then we'll come on back.